Philippine Sea, 19th of June, 1944. 11:52 hours in the conning tower of USS Cavala, Lieutenant Commander Herman J. Kostler raised his periscope for the final bearing check. Through the lens, a massive carrier filled his view. Island superstructure on the starboard side, flight deck empty after launching strikes. Destroyer escorts cutting white wakes in a defensive screen. The range had fallen to 1,400 yards. The torpedo data computer had a firing solution. 6 Mark 14 torpedoes sat ready in the forward tubes, contact pistols set for shallow runs. Combined Fleet Headquarters in Tokyo had planned Operation Ago to deliver a decisive carrier blow and reverse the course of the Pacific War. American codebreakers at Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had read those plans in decoded intercepts and positioned submarine barrier patrols across the expected approach lanes. Now, at the climax of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, one of those submarines had found the veteran carrier Shōkaku, survivor of Pearl Harbor, Coral Sea, and Santa Cruz, steaming at high speed with her air group aloft. In 7 minutes, she would be gone. The moment would mark not just the destruction of a ship, but the operational end of Japan's carrier strike force. A shipyard ledger recorded steel deliveries under the Maru 3 program expansion. Frame sections rose on slipway number 6 for Hull 110, later named Shōkaku, Happy Crane. The Naval General Staff in Tokyo had authorized construction to match United States carrier strength by quality, not quantity. The gamble? Superior craftsmanship, operational doctrine, and aircrew training could offset American industrial scale. Yokosuka Naval Arsenal executed the design with precision. Shōkaku displaced approximately 25,700 tons standard, 32,000 tons at full load. 4 Compange-geared turbines generated 160,000 shaft horsepower, designed to push the hull to 34 knots. Speed essential for generating wind over deck for aircraft launches and for rapid repositioning during strike operations. The air group at design standard numbered roughly 70 to 80 aircraft, A-6M0 fighters, D-3A dive bombers, and B-5N Kate torpedo bombers in mixed complements. The carrier's layout emphasized hangar volume and aviation fuel systems over heavy deck armor. Japanese damage control doctrine relied on crew drills, rapid aircraft spot and respotting cycles, and compartmentalization rather than armored protection. A pre-war staff paper from 1940 stated the operational philosophy clearly. Carrier strike, masked at range, will decide the fleet action. Unit speed and deck cycle determine decisive weight. On 8 August 1941, Captain Takatsugu Jojima signed the commissioning book. His notation read, "Spearhead of the Empire's naval air power." The ship's commissioning record preserved that phrase. Shōkaku was designed for a 2-decade service life. She would be in frontline action for 34 months, then vanish in 7 minutes beneath the Philippine Sea. A strike roster from 7 December 1941 listed launch assignments from Shōkaku's deck during the Pearl Harbor operation. A-6M fighters, B-5N torpedo bombers, and D-3A dive bombers formed up over the First Air Fleet and turned east toward Oahu. Pre-war doctrine predicted that carriers would deliver decisive repeated strikes and retire intact. In practice, attrition of aircraft, crews, and the ship herself began immediately. At the Battle of the Coral Sea in May 1942, United States dive bombers from USS Lexington and USS Yorktown found Shōkaku. Bomb hits struck the flight deck and penetrated into spaces below. Damage and repair records from Kerr Naval Arsenal listed casualties exceeding 100, structural damage to the flight deck, and fires in aviation fuel systems. Repair crews restored flight operations in systems within weeks, a testament to Japanese damage control training and shipyard efficiency. By October 1942, Shōkaku returned to action at the Battle of Santa Cruz. Her air group, coordinated by Lieutenant Commander Tadashi Kaneo and operating under First Air Fleet doctrine, contributed to the destruction of USS Hornet CV-8. United States and Imperial Japanese Navy action reports documented the engagement. Shōkaku's aircraft pressed home attacks despite heavy anti-aircraft fire and inflicted fatal damage on the American carrier. The United States Naval Technical Mission to Japan, conducting post-war surveys, summarized Shōkaku as highly efficient in flight operations for her tonnage. Deck crews, maintenance personnel, and aircrew operated at a tempo that sustained repeated strikes, but each victory brought losses in veteran aircrew that could not be quickly replaced. The airframe pipeline, Newsy Zeros and Cates, rolling from factories, survived. The pilot pipeline did not. By 1943, Shōkaku had launched more than 1,000 combat sorties. Her next air group would include many pilots with minimal carrier deck landing hours, a revised training syllabus, reduced flight hours and carrier landing cycles. An instructor at Oita signed off a graduating class well below pre-war standards. The naval staff had hoped compressed training programs would restore squadron numbers after losses at Midway, the Solomons, and New Guinea. Operational reports showed abbreviated programs produced underprepared carrier pilots, men who could fly and navigate but lacked the instinctive reflexes for carrier operations under combat stress. Post-Midway assessments circulated through headquarters. An internal Imperial Japanese Navy memorandum from March 1944 lamented empty hulls without swords, carriers afloat but without combat-ready air groups. United States intelligence summaries tracked declining Japanese pilot proficiency via combat reports, captured documents, and radio intercepts. The pattern was clear. Japan's training infrastructure could not sustain losses while maintaining quality. Fuel constraints exacerbated the problem. Aviation gasoline dependent on tanker convoys from the Netherlands East Indies became scarce as United States submarines sank transport after transport. Training centers reduced flight hours per student, emphasizing formation and navigation over repeated deck landings and gunnery drills. A training center report from early 1944 noted, average deck landing attempts per student reduced, emphasis on formation and navigation due to fuel economy. Aircraft production continued. A-6M fighters, D-4Y Judy dive bombers, and B-6N Jill torpedo bombers rolled from assembly lines, but trained aircrew lagged behind airframe availability. By mid-1944, Shōkaku's air group included a fighter dive bomber torpedo mix with a high proportion of newly trained pilots. The Imperial Japanese Navy prepared to sail to the Marianas with carriers afloat and aircraft embarked, but the pilot corps was degraded. United States code-breaking and submarine barrier patrols had already taken position to meet them. Commissioning orders lay on the wardroom table of USS Cavalla, SS-244. A stores officer checked off torpedo and spare parts manifest against Gatao-class allowances.
Lieutenant Commander Herman J. Kostler, commanding patrol, ordered from Commander Submarine Force Pacific Fleet, Vice Admiral Charles Ack Lockwood. The orders emphasized barrier tactics, position submarines across expected enemy fleet routes, and intercept capital ships. United States submarines had struggled for 2 years with defective Mark 14 torpedoes. Depth-keeping failures caused torpedoes to run too deep, passing harmlessly beneath targets. Magnetic influence exploders detonated prematurely or failed entirely. Contact pistols designed as a backup often shattered on impact without triggering the warhead. By spring 1944, fixes to depthing mechanisms and contact exploders had restored confidence. Submariners could now trust their weapons. Cavala was a GTO-class fleet submarine 311 feet long. Surface displacement approximately 1,525 tons. 4 diesel engines drove electric generators for surface transit. 2 electric motors powered submerged operations. Surface speed reached 20 to 21 knots. Submerged speed approximately 9 knots. The fire control solution used the Torpedo Data Computer, TDC, integrating target speed, angle on the bow, range, and gyro angle to generate spread fire settings for multiple torpedoes. Mark 14 torpedoes, now reliable with corrected contact pistols, carried warheads of approximately 650 pounds of explosive, sufficient to rupture compartments and ignite fuel or ordnance. Crews trained to avoid magnetic exploders and rely on contact detonations. A Commander Submarine Force Pacific directive from spring 1944 stated, "Barrier patrols to intercept mobile fleet proceeding west of Marianas. Coordinate with ultra-intelligence." Cavala departed Pearl Harbor on her first war patrol. That patrol would later be cited in a Presidential Unit Citation earned within weeks of departing Hawaii. With reliable torpedoes and maturing tactics, United States submarines could now credibly attack capital ships. That capability would matter. On 19th of June, a decoded message strip from Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, FRU PAC, was stapled to a distribution sheet. Duty officers marked movements of Operation Ago forces from Tawi anchorage toward the Marianas. Japanese staff officers assumed operational security would mask timing and axis of advance. Radio intercepts gave United States forces the general route and window of attack. FRU PAC analysts working in secure spaces at Pearl Harbor disseminated intelligence to Commander Submarine Force Pacific and Fifth Fleet headquarters. Admiral Lockwood ordered a barrier patrol line. Approximately a dozen submarines deployed across several hundred miles west of the Marianas, aligned with expected Japanese approach lanes. Intelligence provided movement indicators, but not precise tracks. Submarines still needed to make visual periscope or radar contact. Coordination relied on patrol sectors. Cavala was assigned to waters roughly southwest of Saipan, positioned where staff analysts expected enemy carrier formations to pass. Radio intelligence, often referred to as ultra in United States usage, did not give exact positions, but it narrowed search areas from millions of square miles to manageable zones. An intelligence bulletin from mid-June 1944 stated, "Enemy carrier force will attempt to engage near Saipan on or about 18th to 20th June." The assessment proved accurate. Barrier placement ensured that at least some United States submarines would be inside the Japanese fleet marching path, turning reconnaissance patrols into strike opportunities. Technology, intelligence, and positioning converged. Two United States submarines, Cavalla and USS Albacore, would independently find different segments of Vice Admiral Jizaburo Ozawa's mobile fleet on the same day, with capital ship consequences. The barrier line had been set. Now it was a matter of patience, periscope discipline, and firing solutions. In Cavala's conning tower, the radar watch noted aircraft returns on the SJ surface search radar. Below periscope depth, the torpedo data computer operator read off bearing changes as screw noise grew louder in the hydrophones. Lieutenant Commander Kler's patrol orders emphasized scouting and reporting. Engaging a fleet carrier under escort was high risk, but the developing solution showed a workable firing position. Radar contacts indicated air activity, fighters and strike aircraft launching or recovering, consistent with carrier operations. Kler ordered the boat to periscope depth for visual identification. Through the periscope lens, he identified large carriers and destroyer escorts. The target selected for attack matched Shōkaku's silhouette. Island superstructure configuration, deck markings, and overall dimensions. Imperial Japanese Navy recognition manuals described class-specific features that trained periscope watch officers used for identification. Cavala maneuvered for a bow shot, staying deep enough to avoid detection while tracking the formation's zigzag pattern. The approach followed the constant bearing, decreasing range principle, CBDR. If the periscope bearing to the target remained constant while range decreased, the submarine was on a collision course, ideal for a bow shot with minimal gyro angle settings. Torpedo settings were planned for shallow runs, 6 to 10 feet below the surface to strike the carrier's hull at or near the waterline. Gyro angle spread compensated for target maneuvers and aiming uncertainties. The TDC continuously updated the firing solution based on target speed, course changes, and range inputs from periscope observations. An extract from Cavala's patrol report later stated,
Target angle starboard, speed estimated high. Commence final approach, standby forward tubes. The range fell inside approximately 1,500 yards, close enough that three-dimensional errors in speed, angle, and depth estimates shrank to manageable values, close enough that a point-blank attack envelope opened, also close enough that detection by escorts could be fatal. Standby forward tubes. Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, Fire 4, Fire 5, Fire 6. 6 Mark 14 torpedoes left Cavalla's bow tubes in rapid succession. Impulse air hiss of water entry, and the boat heeled slightly as mass left the forward end. In the torpedo room, crewmen recorded run times on stopwatches. The TDC solution predicted intercept in approximately 90 seconds. Imperial Japanese Navy doctrine trusted destroyer screens and carrier speed to prevent submarine attack. At close range and with the element of surprise, the screen proved insufficient. Shōkaku's high speed, approximately 30 knots, and zigzag pattern complicated the fire control problem. But Cler's patient tracking and the TDC's continuous updates produced an accurate solution. Cavalla's patrol report assessed 3 hits. Japanese loss accounts compiled after the war from survivor interviews and ship's logs described explosions near aviation fuel systems and machinery spaces. The first torpedo struck forward of the island, rupturing fuel lines and starting fires. The second hit amidships, flooding engine rooms and causing loss of propulsion. The third detonated aft, disrupting steering and damage control communications. Aviation gasoline lines, hangar ventilation, and ordnance storage became critical vulnerabilities when penetrated below the waterline. Mark 14 contact pistols, with corrected depth settings, delivered warheads equivalent to 650 pounds of TNT or Torpex, sufficient to rupture compartments, ignite fuel vapor, and trigger secondary explosions among armed and fueled aircraft in the hangar. An Imperial Japanese Navy survivor report, part of post-war compilations, stated, "Violent explosion below hangar, flames through aircraft lifts." Cavalla's report recorded 3-time detonations, heavy explosion heard at 12:01. Fire mains lost pressure. Hangar ventilation fans drew flames through passageways. Damage control parties trained and equipped for firefighting found themselves overwhelmed by the speed and intensity of the conflagration. Torpedo hits ignited aviation fuel and ordnance, defeating damage control within minutes. Speed fell. The carrier developed a list. Internal explosions forced the captain to abandon ship protocols. From first hit to terminal explosion spanned less than 10 minutes. A modern fleet carrier removed from the order of battle faster than a single-deck cycle could launch and recover aircraft. Propeller cavitation from attacking destroyers drowned Cavalla's hydrophones. Depth charges detonated in violent patterns as the submarine took evasive action, diving beyond test depth. Escorts, including destroyer Urakazi, prosecuted the contact. Attack logs from the United States side counted more than 100 depth charges over several hours. Lieutenant Commander Kostler ordered deep dives and silent running. All non-essential equipment was secured. The crew moved slowly to avoid noise. Depth charges exploded close enough to crack the periscope housing and open minor leaks, but hull integrity held. Japanese sonar and echo ranging sets had constrained range and precision compared to United States equipment. Depth charges fused.
The carrier force existed on paper, hulls afloat, machinery intact, but operationally it was finished. The 7-minute death of Shōkaku symbolized the collapse of Japan's carrier aviation capability. Superior American technology, intelligence, and tactics had converged to remove Japan's most experienced carrier from the war in less time than it took to launch a single strike wave. The battle demonstrated that modern naval warfare had evolved beyond surface engagements and carrier duels. Submarines with reliable torpedoes,
guided by code-breaking intelligence and positioned through strategic barrier patrols, could eliminate capital ships before they ever reached the battle space. Shōkaku, designed for a 20-year service life, veteran of the Pacific War's greatest carrier battles, vanished beneath the Philippine Sea in 7 minutes, taking with her not just 1,200 crewmen, but Japan's last realistic hope of contesting American naval dominance in the Pacific. The flying crane had flown her last mission.